Hey guys, I'm going to be off on vacation for about 2 weeks, so I won't be making much content for a while. But before I leave, I wanted to leave you guys with a really fun deck I've been toying with. Originally, I was going to cover some blue steel deck tech and metagame analysis after playing over 230 games of it on ladder, but I've been addicted to this green steel mill deck. It started as a joke one night, and I threw together a random mill list just for trolling. And I started off something awful like 1 in 6, but I kept tweaking it until I created an absolute monstrosity that ended up being easily the most fun deck I've ever played in Lorcana. My win rate on it isn't exactly tier 1 status, but sometimes it's not about playing the best deck, but it's the satisfaction of making your opponents helplessly watch in horror as you force them to draw every single card in their deck. I won't go much into the deck tech. I think it's better demonstrated through some gameplay clips. So definitely not by popular demand, and a deck spotlight that no one asked for. I present to you the Green Steel Mill deck. This deck runs an absolutely insane 24 uninkables. This is mostly due to 4 Mother Knows Best and 2 Genies, in addition to Cusco's. So the major point of this deck is to mulligan extremely conservatively and just keep a lot of ink. The only uninkable you ever keep is a Whole New World, although sometimes you can keep that with a Mother Knows Best if the rest of your cards are ink and very good. You're also always keeping a Tinkerbell to potentially set up for the Tinkerbell shift combo. Also, at the start of the game, it's extremely important to plan out your ink. Because this deck lives on the edge of an ink ability, it needs to consistently hit 5 ink for its characters to hit the board to sing out a whole new world. And you need to sometimes hold back early on and just ink your Captain Hooks if your hand looks a little dangerous on ink count, even if it means allowing your opponent to get a few lore. I'll give an example of this from a game clip. In this game, we start with an excellent 4 ink card, and the only way to make this hand perfect would be if we had a whole new world as well. We send back our 3 uninkables in our mulligan, and the deck trolls us and basically gives us the same uninkables back. Our opponent goes first and plays a Duke after inking Mad Hatter, so he's playing some aggressive green deck. We draw another uninkable Genie on our turn, and because of this, it's way too risky to play Captain Hook turn 1. We need to ink him and hope to be able to hit turn 3 Tinkerbell with a turn 4 shift. We fortunately hit barely enough inkables by turn 4 to go turn 3 Tinkerbell, turn 4 shift. And if we had played a turn 1 Captain Hook, we would have certainly lost the game. But instead, we're able to get our opponent with the Tinkerbell trap, and the game quickly ends soon after. This game was won without decking the opponent with a whole new world. Underneath the wheel package is a pretty solid green steel deck that can turn on the heat and win through questing. I would say half my games are won this way, so it's important to be able to be flexible in going a different route if your hand and board and matchup dictates it. But of course, the more fun way to win is decking the opponent. So let's take a look at a game against Yellow Steel, which is currently the most popular deck in the metagame, and see what happens when our deck decides to pop off. Our starting hand is actually pretty amazing, given we don't have the Tinkerbell combo, so we send back our only non-Whole New World uninkable swords. And our deck loves to troll us again and gives us the literal worst mulligan 1 card, and it's another Whole New World. We're also going second, which is really unfortunate if we have the Whole New World in our starting hand. Our poor unsuspecting victim in this game is Bluebirds, who is running a hybrid version of mid-range Steel Yellow and Lantern Wheel. When you see a Hakuna Matata ink turn 1, it's usually going to be the version that runs You've Forgotten Me, so you have to be very careful not to run into that card when you're about to play Whole New World. The mid-range Yellow Steel deck doesn't really apply much pressure early on, so I opt not to go for a turn 1 Captain Hook, especially after having drawn an uninkable Mother Knows Best. The game proceeds slowly, from both players till my turn 2, where I draw my third whole new world. This is actually a disaster. With 3 whole new worlds in my starting hand by turn 2, the plan to deck the opponent is gone, right? Well, you guys will soon see the power of Green Steel Mill. My opponent Ariel's on turn 3 and hits a grab your sword. And I play a thick boy Green Mickey on defense, as I feel like I have a good chance to hit my turn 5 ink. I don't plan on playing Hans on turn 4. I need him for ink, especially with this awful looking hand. Our boy Green Mickey is far too thick with his 4 toughness, so my opponent decides to play Smash and sing Swords to get rid of him. Interesting play. I decide to take an ink gamble and smash his Ariel, and just pray I draw an ink for turn 5 Cerberus. This gamble pays off as I draw a Tinkerbell and I ink her and slam down my massive tank Cerberus to start singing. Once you land a solid 5-drop on the board and have a whole new world in your hand, this is where the deck really starts taking off. Ideally, you'll also want to have a 3-drop on the board as well to be able to sing Mother Knows Best later on. My opponent uses up his turn 4 to cast You Have Forgotten Me, and I laugh as it hits my 2 extra useless whole new worlds. Now the magic begins. Mother Knows Best has insane synergy with Whole New World, as it acts as a 3-ink removal for their best character. If you have a character that can sing it, it costs nothing to remove their best character from the board as you snowball and tempo off of it. I cast Mother Knows Best on his Hans and sing out a Whole New World. We hit a Lady Tremaine, so we're good to go next round with a Whole New World again. We also find a nice Tinkerbell 3-drop to sing out Mother Knows Best for his best character next turn and pop off again. He plays a giant Tinkerbell, which is about to be sent back to the abyss. On my turn, I play Lady Tremaine, grabbing back my whole new world, and sing Mother Knows Best on his Tinkerbell, and then sing and wheel away our hand once again. Our wheel this time doesn't give us any gas for a whole new world, which isn't too surprising given that we started with 3 in our hand. But we have a baby Tinkerbell on board to dig a little deeper, and this gives our opponent a little bit of time to try and catch up to our completely dominant board state. After seeing what happened to his giant Tinkerbell, he plays out 3 characters this time in fear of me returning another character and wheeling away our hands. On my turn, my Tinkerbell digs 1 card deeper and finds a Do It Again. We ink and play Kuzco to get another 5-ink singer on board, and we return a whole new world back to our hand with Do It Again. And, well, like the card says, we do it again and sing Whole New World. We hit our last copy of Whole New World on this cycle, and since we have Lady Tremaine available, we might as well go ahead and sing it out again, as nothing else in our hand is worth waiting for. I'm also always keeping tabs on my opponent's discard pile to see how many key cards, like Grab Your Swords, he's lost, and unfortunately for our opponent, he's lost 3 of them. My Whole New World hits his last sword and gives us another Lady Tremaine and Do It Again, so we're going to be able to wheel again next turn. Since our opponent is out of swords, it doesn't really matter what he does on his turn, he won't be able to remove all our 5-ink singers. He kills my Tinkerbell, probably out of fear that she'll dig me deeper into my deck for a Whole New World ammo. On my turn, I do it again and cycle another Whole New World. I hit another Do It Again, and now my opponent only has 6 cards left in his deck, so the game is over. From turn 5 to turn 9, we just comboed off and milled his entire deck. Green Steel Mill against Yellow Steel is a very fun matchup, and I think it's a pretty fair fight. A lot of it comes down to whether you draw your wheel or not. Against the Lantern wheel decks, sometimes they help you out by wheeling away your bad hands right into your own combos and swords. I've stolen a ton of games from my opponents just by combo milling them the turn right before they're about to win. I guess that's why they call it green steel. Now let's take a look at a second game where we're against red-purple control. We're going first here and have a great starting hand, although we take a slightly greedy mulligan sending 2 inkable cards back. I think the safer play would be just to send 1, but fortunately we don't get punished too hard here. Since I have an Eric in my hand, I go ahead and ink the Captain Hook and pass. My opponent inks a Gaston, and he's pretty likely to be red-purple, so the plan here is to ink my Eric and eventually save up my Beast in case he has a Pocket Watch or a Cauldron. Magic Mirror isn't as big of a deal against wheel decks, but we'll take that value too if he offers it to us. My opponent, seeing me ink a Hook and Hans, plays a Gaston, thinking we're some green steel aggro deck, but he has no idea what's about to hit him. I'm just happy here inking till I can hit a 5-drop on board and start wheeling off. Red-purple is said to have the best late game, but I think green steel mill has a much more dangerous endgame when you allow it to hit 10 plus ink. He plays Maleficent and draws a card, and we're very happy to see that. I want him to play all of his friends on the other side right before I hit him with a wheel. I ink a Tinkerbell as she's not very good in the matchup, and keep up the facade that I'm playing your typical steel deck. My opponent Quest plays a Shield of Virtue, which gives us a target for Beast, and plays Friends on the other side, which is the perfect turn for us. I beast his shield, and then on his turn, he plays a Jafar. Now, I could play Genie and return his Jafar, but that Gaston is kind of annoying on board, so I decide to delay 1 turn and swords away his Gaston and Maleficent. Turn 6 is not a dangerous turn for red-purple, as their major heavy hitters come out on turns 7, 8, and 9. So here, a Genie follow-up to your own 5 ink drop is extremely good. It's similar in tempo to Mother Knows Best, but you also have a singer available for future Whole New Worlds on board. I bounce Jafar, which is his best character, and sing out a Whole New World with Beast. We pick up a wheel in our next draw along with a Mother Knows Best, so we can start our combo chain from here. If he be prepared, it's not a big deal, as he has to use up all his ink for 1 round to do so, and we can just develop our board with tempo. He does end up playing Be Prepared and clears the board. On my turn, I decide to just play Small Tinkerbell and hardcast a Whole New World. Small Tinkerbell has the ability to shift sing, although I'd prefer to be at 10 ink to be able to shift and combo off with a Lady Tremaine. He drops an Elsa on his turn, which delays us, but I draw a second Mother Knows Best. So I decide to just play Lady Tremaine and bounce his Elsa, just so I can get the Whole New World in my hand. On his turn, he plays Elsa again, which is expected. And then, on my turn, I bounce it with Mother Knows Best and hardcast another Whole New World. We draw into another Whole New World and a Do It Again. Here, having the Do It Again in hand is nice, as it can get back my Mother Knows Best and bounce his best character on my next cycle. I bounce his Jafar and cast Whole New World, although maybe singing it might be better to leave me the option to cast a 5-drop or something. But on the other hand, casting it protects my Mother Tremaine from some Rafiki or Maui attacks. I wheel into another Whole New World, and I sing it. And I wheel into a Do It Again to get ready for my next cycle. At this point, my opponent has 4 cards left in his deck, and he cannot do anything in this game. I'm actually not sure what he could have done differently in this game besides maybe play a lot more aggressively at the start. But I'm pretty sure he never even put me on green steel mill until it was far too late. Once I start comboing off and hitting my key cards, this game is completely unwinnable for him. As a side note, there are some red-purple games where you just win off straight lore and board advantage. If you wheel yourself into a very favorable hand and board state, and your opponent drew garbage and already lost a lot of his outs, you can just switch your game plan and play straight up to 20. Take a look at this example game where I've already used a whole new world, and my opponent plays a Pongo and Maui. I wipe his board with a Tinkerbell and Sung Swords, and then cast Do It Again to return a whole new world to my hand. My opponent, seeing what's about to happen, plays out the rest of his hand to get board presence, and I realize he only has 1 card left in hand, and my card and board state is superior. So I just end up holding onto my whole new worlds the rest of the game, and just straight up win on board. I have my whole new world as backup in case things go south, but I'm not going to just blindly cast it to give my opponent a chance to get back into the game. Green Steel Mill is actually pretty good against red-purple, and should have the advantage in the matchup, especially if the opponent doesn't know what deck he's up against. Even if they do, the game can be very close, and the red-purple player has to play extremely aggressively to try and race your combo, and I think red-purple versus Mill is a very exciting matchup. I've actually taken several games off top ladder grandmasters with Green Steel Mill when they were taken by surprise with the deck I was playing. Finally, let's take a look against some green aggro decks. In this game, I'm facing off against Bjornfot, who really likes his aggro decks and is a regular frequenter of online Lorcana tournaments. This is my 3rd encounter with him, with me playing my Green Steel Mill deck, and I'm actually up 2-0, but the games have been nail-bitingly close. In this game, I'm playing first, which is always good, and I have a decent starting hand. I mulligan away my 1 uninkable, only to get trolled once again with my deck by giving me a whole new world. This deck really hates me, I swear. We keep some high ink cards because we're playing first, and we have a 3-drop Mickey. If we were going second, I might send a few more cards back in hopes of hitting a 1 or 2-drop Hook or Prince Eric. As is my default plan with this deck when starting with a whole new world, I just ink and pass and hope to get to 5 ink so I can drop a Singer onto the board. He plays a Flounder, and I ink a Drawn Beast and pass. He then plays a Flynn Rider, and then I decide to ink my Big Tinkerbell, as I have not drawn Baby Tinkerbell yet, and Big Tinkerbell is going to be too slow. Cerberus just comes out 1 turn faster. I need to keep Smash in my hand in case he plays a turn 3 Cheshire Cat. He plays a Cheshire Cat and quests. My deck trolls me again by sending me a Baby Tinkerbell right after I inked Big Tinkerbell, but at least I get to discard my extra whole new world to his Flynn Rider. I have a really tough ink decision here on whether I want to ink Cerberus or Baby Tinkerbell. I decided all I need to do is draw any inkable card, and Cerberus will be on the board, so I decided to ink Baby Tinkerbell, especially since I inked a Big Tinkerbell earlier. Baby Tink would have allowed me to cycle 1 card if I don't hit next turn, so there are pros and cons to both. My deck gives me a Mad Hatter, and I decide I need Cerberus' attack power and health more than I need Mad Hatter's lore, so I put him out onto the field. My opponent plays a Maleficent, and all I need to do is hit 1 more ink, so I can Genie Tempo his Maleficent and wheel away our hands. But my stupid deck trolls me once again and gives me my 3rd whole new world, which is obviously horrible. I still wheel anyways, but having a Genie on board and a Maleficent off board would have been a completely game-changing state. I was really hoping to wheel into another Genie or Mother Knows Best, but all I got was a Beast, and I need his attack power to be able to challenge the Maleficent on board, so I play him and ink a Tinkerbell. I quest in with Mickey, cause why not? My opponent plays a Cusco and quests, and now I'm on a very dangerous clock. Now you guys will see the flexibility and power of action recursion. I decide to sing out of swords, grab it back with the do it again, and sing it again, and then I trade my Mickey into his Maleficent to clear his board. I then play Hans to start catching up and ramping up the lore pressure on my end. He plays Jasper and Tinkerbell. I play Kuzco, and since my hand is depleted, I decide it's time for another wheel and grab back Whole New World with Do It Again and spin out a new hand. I hit another wheel, but my hand has gas. I hit 2 more Do It Agains, and that means effectively 2 more Grab Your Swords. There's no way I'm throwing this hand away. My opponent plays out his characters onto the board after questing, and locking down my Hans from questing with his Jasper. I decide I don't even need to use double swords with my hand, as every character can be wiped away from Tinkerbell plus swords, except Jasper, and I'll just use my lockdown Hans to kill the Jasper. I want to keep the Do It Again in hand as backup in case I need to swords his next cycle of characters. On his turn, he plays a Flynn Rider and Flounder. He also casts Mother Knows Best on my Hans, as otherwise I would have lethal lore on board. I go ahead and recycle a Grab Your Swords again, and wipe out his board just to be safe, and then I quest in. On his turn, he shows me his double Eye of the Fates, which would have actually been lethal with his Flounder and Flynn Rider if I didn't wipe the board. Pretty sick game. This deck has a lot of neat tricks, like bouncing your own Kuzco to save him from attacks, or bouncing your own Mother Tremaines to cast her again for a whole new world. I've also had games where I intentionally fed their Rapunzel as bait, just so I can wheel away an extra 3 cards. If you guys want to try something off meta, I highly recommend this deck and playing around with the list. There's definitely a bit of a learning curve, especially with mulligan and inking decisions. I initially started with a 20 to 30% win rate with this deck, but once I got the handle on things and made a few tweaks and adjustment to my gameplay and the deck list, I now hover over 55% win rate. From my experience, the deck's worst matchup is Mickey ramp decks, as it just can't keep up with the tempo of early Maleficents into Hades board tempo. Oh, it also loses quite a bit to itself through uninkables or never drawing a whole new world, but otherwise it remains surprisingly competitive with the rest of the field. It's also by far my favorite deck I've ever played in Lorcana, and I think that has to count for something big. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully I'll see you all terrorizing the metagame on Pixelborn with Green Steel Mill in a couple of weeks when I get back from my trip.